Welcome back. If you're the kind of person who just loves breaking down complex relational dynamics and figuring out what really makes human connections tick, you are in exactly the right place. I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's explainer. We're looking at a fascinating piece of source material, the lyrics of a really powerful song called Feel the Rain. But listen, we aren't just sitting here analyzing rhyme schemes or poetry today. No, we're using these lyrics as a mirror. We want to understand the destructive power of emotional suppression and really contrast that with the absolute necessity of open communication and vulnerability. Because this source material perfectly captures the hidden mechanics of a relationship falling apart, not from some massive, explosive fight, but from silence. Let's just jump right in.
Okay, let's start with this incredible opening hook. There's a quiet distance growing wider every day. That perfectly describes that creeping, completely unspoken disconnect people experience long before a relationship actually breaks down, doesn't it? It rarely starts with a dramatic exit. Instead, it starts with like a millimeter of space, one unsaid thought, one swallowed feeling, and suddenly you have this invisible gap between two people. And the key word here is definitely quiet. It's the silence that allows that distance to grow completely unchallenged.
All right, so that brings us to section 1, the anatomy of distance. The opening verses capture a really painful paradox. The symptoms are obvious. There's a cold wind rising, right where laughter used to be. The joy is just gone, replaced by this chill. But at the same time, love is still between us, even if it's fading in the haze. The real tragedy here is that the foundation of the relationship hasn't actually been destroyed yet. The love is literally still there. But the individuals are helplessly watching their bond slip out of reach. As the lyrics note, nothing really ended. There was no official breakup, but the sheer lack of communication creates this fog, this haze that totally obscures the love that remains.
So, what's the hidden culprit here? Well, it's emotional suppression. That's the act of pushing down your internal feelings and needs rather than openly expressing them to your partner. Bottling things up. When you suppress your emotions, you probably think you're avoiding an argument. Actually, scratch that. You probably think you're just keeping the peace. But what you're really doing is building a wall. And this suppression perfectly sets the stage for a massive, intense internal conflict.
Moving right along to section 2, thunder without the rain.
And this right here is the agonizing core of the whole song. The narrator admits, "I can hear the thunder." Well, thunder is the warning, right? It represents the pressure, the anxiety, and the internal chaos of all those built-up emotions. But tragically, they cannot feel the rain. Think about nature for a second. The rain is what finally clears the humidity and pressure from the air. Emotionally speaking, the rain is the release. It's vulnerability, it's crying, it's open communication. But the narrator is trapped feeling all the terrifying buildup of the storm without ever getting the relief of just letting the rain fall.
And guys, this takes an immense physical and emotional toll. There's a storm inside me, rolling in without a sound. I really want to emphasize how utterly exhausting it is to fight an invisible, silent emotional battle. The narrator points out that every time they fight it, it just knocks them straight to the ground. When we don't communicate openly, we end up fighting our own bottled-up feelings. And because it's happening without a sound, the partner has literally no idea the battle's even taking place.
Which leads us to section 3, the weight of heavy silence.
Listen to this because it is just a tragically relatable reality. There's a heavy silence filling up the space we share, not because you left me, but because you're barely there. Wow. The partner hasn't physically left, they're sitting right there on the couch, but the emotional suppression has created a massive void. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, In a relationship, a heavy silence is a physical presence. It takes up space, it actively pushes people apart. Because physical proximity absolutely does not equal intimacy.
And in that silent space, panic sets in. The source text describes a dim light flickering where the fire used to burn, noting that they keep trying to warm it, but it never quite returns. Notice the utter futility here. It's like trying to start a campfire in an absolute downpour, entirely by yourself. Relationships require a shared spark. You cannot force a connection if the other person just remains closed off and absolutely refuses to participate in open communication.
All right, section 4, the need for vulnerability.
Arguably, the ultimate failure of the relationship described here happens in the bridge, where the storm keeps building and you never learn the why.
Ouch. The absolute deepest heartbreak in this scenario isn't even necessarily that someone is leaving. It's the total lack of emotional vulnerability required to explain the why behind the pain. When we withhold our reasons, our fears, and our needs, we literally deny our partners the chance to understand us or fix the problem.
Let's contrast these two paths. First, we have the path of the song's narrator, the heavy silence. This is all about bottled up feelings, never learning the why, and hearing the thunder but getting absolutely no relief. That path, it leads straight to isolation and fear. The antidote is open communication. This means stepping up, expressing vulnerability, actively sharing the why behind your actions, and finally allowing yourself to feel the rain, to release that emotional pressure. To build a truly healthy relationship, you have to actively move away from the heavy silence and step into open communication.
Let's talk about solutions in Section 5, Clearing the Storm.
So how do we actually break this silence? Well, first off, don't just wait for a sign to cut the night. Passivity is literally the enemy of connection here. If you feel distance, you have to address it. Second, verbally share your why before the storm builds. Don't wait until the thunder is deafening to explain that you're hurt or overwhelmed. Give your partner the map to your internal world. And finally, allow the rain of vulnerability to release the pressure. Sure, it might feel frightening to open up, kind of like lightning flashing across the sky, but that release is absolutely necessary to clear the air. Don't be a passive victim to a low sky hanging over your relationship. Take action.
Unfortunately, the narrator of our source text doesn't take that action. Remember the somber outro? So I stand here waiting for a sign to cut the night, but the clouds keep rolling, and I'm lost without the light. This right here is the ultimate danger of emotional suppression. By choosing to stand and wait in silence, just hoping the other person will magically fix the atmosphere, the narrator remains completely lost. The clouds simply don't clear on their own.
Which brings us to our final critical thought for this explainer. Are you waiting for a sign, or are you ready to speak through the silence? The tragedy of Feel the Rain does not have to be your story. Healthy relationships are built on open communication and the courage to finally let the rain fall. So I want you to take this challenge with you today. Identify where you are holding back the why in your own life and find the words to break the heavy silence. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and I'll see you in the next one.